This is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the significance of Donald Trump's mugshot? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, then move to my analysis. Donald Trump served as the 45th President of the United States, starting in 2017. He ran for re-election, but was defeated by Joe Biden. Donald has been the target of several criminal investigations. At the time making this video, he has been arrested in connection with 4 criminal cases. In March 2023, he was charged with 34 felonies in New York. This was in connection with hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. Donald was indicted by the federal government in June after allegedly removing classified documents and obstructing efforts made by the government to retrieve those documents. He is facing 40 felony counts in that case. In early August 2023, Donald was indicted by the federal government on 4 felony counts. This was for his efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. And in mid-August, Donald and 18 other defendants were indicted in Georgia for charges related to election interference. This case involves 13 felonies against Donald Trump, including 1 count of violating the Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act, otherwise known as RICO. At the time making this video, Donald Trump is facing 91 felonies altogether, 44 federal charges, and 47 state charges. He maintains the presumption of innocence and has denied responsibility. Many of these circumstances that led to the charges are unprecedented, so it's very difficult to predict the outcome of any of these cases. The hush money case is probably the weakest and seems the most politically motivated, but one could make a decent argument that Donald has at least a moderate risk of being convicted of some charges in the other 3 cases. When Donald was arrested in the Georgia election interference case, the jail where he surrendered took his mugshot. This image has become one of the most notorious mugshots ever taken in history. A former U.S. president has never been charged with a crime before Donald Trump. Therefore, there have not been any mugshots of former U.S. presidents. This is yet another first for Donald Trump. Before looking at the cultural significance and other aspects of this particular mugshot, I want to talk for a moment about mugshots in general. A mugshot creates a photographic record of an individual who has been arrested. It allows for identification of the alleged offender by the public, investigators, and victims. Rules about mugshots vary based on jurisdiction. In some areas, not everyone who is arrested is subject to a mugshot, and not every mugshot is released to the public. Mugshots are controversial because they are taken when a person is presumed innocent. These images are highly prejudicial and automatically associate the person in the image with criminal behavior. These images can restrict employment opportunities and cause distress. In some areas, there are laws which place restrictions on the release of mugshots and what they can be used for. Despite these concerns, many mugshots are public. Some, of course, are more well-known than others. Mugshots of celebrities and notorious criminals have attracted a great deal of attention. The mugshot has become a cultural symbol which possesses a significance beyond simply identifying alleged offenders. It can symbolize different ideas under different circumstances. Here are a few examples. In 1938, Frank Sinatra was arrested for the charge of seduction because he allegedly had sex with a single female of good repute under the promise of marriage. As it turns out, the woman was actually married, not single. The charge was dismissed, and Frank was charged with adultery instead. His mugshot has become a symbol for the antiquated nature of some laws. In 1970, Jane Fonda was falsely accused of drug smuggling due to her anti-Vietnam War activism. Her mugshot became a symbol of defiance. Some mugshots that have been taken when people were young have come to symbolize how people can completely turn their lives around and have incredible success after an alleged offense. For example, Bill Gates was arrested in 1977 for driving without a license and running a stop sign. Keanu Reeves was arrested in 1993 for driving under the influence and reckless driving, and Robert Downey Jr. was arrested in 1999 for missing drug tests while on probation. All three of these individuals would go on to have amazing success. Mugshots can take on the symbolism of a wake-up call and the need to have some type of hair care regimen. In 2002, 10 years after being named the sexiest man alive, Nick Nolte's mugshot, after being arrested on a drug charge, made people worry about his well-being. Some mugshots have come to symbolize how a person was just getting started with making trouble, like the beginning of a tumultuous era of their lives. In 2006, Paris Hilton was arrested for DUI. 4 years later, she was arrested for cocaine possession. In 2007, Lindsay Lohan was arrested for DUI. She found herself arrested several more times over the next few years. And in 2014, Justin Bieber was arrested for resisting arrest and driving under the influence. He was never arrested again, but he did something far worse. He continued recording music. Now moving to my analysis of Donald Trump's mugshot. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1, Donald Trump's mugshot was taken because in the state of Georgia, it is mandatory to have a mugshot if someone is charged with a felony. Even though it was taken in connection with this one case, it has come to represent every charge against Donald Trump. Some people have not read the indictments, so in a sense, this image may be their only source of information about the case against Donald Trump. All they will learn about the charges comes from this one image. Item number 2, what does Donald Trump want his mugshot to symbolize? I think Donald wants his mugshot to become a symbol of defiance, a man battling against the forces of evil. Donald is fighting a corrupt government that is allegedly perpetrating a massive conspiracy. The way that Donald glared at the camera illustrates his contempt for the system that has tried to gain justice and signifies his willingness to deny responsibility for his behavior forever. He is standing up for the right to be deceptive, the right to claim something that is not true. In Donald's mind, everyone who is against him is wrong, and only he can restore truth, fairness, and balance to the universe. A mugshot almost always carries a negative connotation, but Donald is trying to flip the narrative around. If the justice system is corrupt, then a mugshot is an image of a hero. Donald has described his prosecution as a travesty of justice. In a curious twist, Donald posted the mugshot on Twitter with the caption, "Election interference, never surrender." He did this after surrendering for election interference. Item number 3, what does Donald Trump actually believe about his mugshot? As I've mentioned in other videos, one could argue that Donald possesses a few narcissistic traits. He is manipulative, grandiose, self-centered, arrogant, condescending, and has a sense of entitlement. Narcissism is rampant among U.S. presidents, but there's something shockingly blatant about Donald's characteristics. He believes in his own greatness with a ferocious intensity. This is something that he must believe. His ego is fragile, and he cannot handle being exposed to the truth. This is reflected in the way Donald views people. In his mind, his supporters are wonderful, and his detractors are evil. There is no room for disagreement, like a variety of opinions. Rather, there is only good and bad, right and wrong. Donald cannot perceive something in more than one way. He does not have the ability to maintain a nuanced view of the world. He views everything in absolutes. Donald cannot appreciate how his mugshot can represent more than one idea. To him, it is simply an indication of how he is such a force for good that evildoers have come out of the woodwork to take him down. The mugshot supports the only narrative that Donald Trump believes in, his own greatness. Item number 4, what does Donald Trump's mugshot symbolize to those who support his prosecution? I think there are a few ways to look at this particular image. First, it represents sadness. How one person was so obsessed with power, he was unwilling to peacefully transfer it to the legitimate winner of an election. How one person can be so profoundly affected by lack of insight and narcissistic traits. Donald Trump may go to prison as a result of his legal difficulties, but he is already in a prison of narcissism. There is no possibility of parole. Moving to the second way to view the image, it is a representation of justice. How no one is above the law. Even people who have access to authority and wealth must face the consequences of their behavior. Third, this image represents how the age of civility in politics has come to a conclusion. Whether Donald Trump is being justly or unjustly prosecuted, using the courts to pursue former politicians will now be thought of as a viable option. His prosecution has been polarizing and will result in political payback sometime in the future. Whenever a politician does anything wrong, potential criminal charges will be in the forefront of people's minds. Civil disagreements between leaders will be replaced by threats of misusing the courts. Item number 5. I've talked about all these different ways the mugshot can be viewed. How do I think it will be viewed in the long run? There is no way to know for certain, but I think one thing that matters here is the outcome of the criminal cases. If Donald Trump is convicted of all or most of the charges, his mugshot will come to represent the fairness of the justice system. If Donald is acquitted or convicted of just a few charges, his mugshot might come to symbolize how the justice system is corrupt and politicized. In this way, the mugshot will become a valuable symbol to the perceived winner. But I think, either way, the government was able to humiliate Donald Trump with the mugshot. It will always represent an injury to him. Even if he holds the image out as a symbol of corruption, Donald must know at some level that the mugshot was devastating to his image. A person prone to manipulate always looks around and tries to figure out what they can get away with. They try to measure the temperature in the room and determine how far they can push the limits. Donald must recognize that the mugshot represents how he found the limit the hard way. Now moving to my final thoughts. The mugshot of Donald Trump is polarizing, but is there any symbolism it possesses that everybody can agree upon? I would argue that whether people love Donald Trump or hate him, it is impossible to deny that he has built a resume that no one else in history can, or would want to, claim. His set of experiences has been unique, including both his accomplishments and his failures. His outstanding journey has been captured pretty well in that one mugshot. It will live on as a symbol of one of the most interesting life stories that any person could possibly possess. Those are my thoughts on Donald Trump's mugshot. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.